Hi, everyone. Welcome to another amazing topic of conversation. I want to thank my sponsors, the Health Channel. So please sign up for their newsletter with anything regarding your health. Also, welcome to Hermosa Mujer, which is an empowering ecosystem for women who want to become their own boss. So hermosamujer.net, learn all about it. And if you need an office space, even if it's just for an hour, a virtual office, or a boardroom for a meeting, Alexa's Workspaces will be able to help you. So, Commander, welcome.
Thank you.
Today's conversation is a little bit different because everybody that is looking at you will see, okay, wait a second, you're not at the age of retirement, but you're actually just retired from Miami Police Department.
Yes.
So talk to us about the whole process. Like what made you retire now?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that went into it. So some financial decisions, a lot of it was that. We had some financial things that came up and past contracts. In police departments, there's a lot of contracts between unions and governments. So we had a contract that went back probably about 14 years ago that ultimately affected the trajectory of a lot of us farther down the line that sometimes you don't realize at the time. So it placed a salary cap on us, and once you reach that cap, there's no more after that. So I had already gone into what we call the drop program, which is you're working still, but you're collecting your retirement, but your retirement gets funneled into an account. So you have an expiration date now. You have 7 years maximum for us, and our police department was as far as you could go.
So
The
wait a
average,
second. When you decide to put the drop, you have 7 years to leave, but you can leave
yeah,
anytime in between?
yeah, you can leave at any point. Most officers don't survive the 7 years. It's very rare, at least in our agency. The average time is probably about 2, 3 years. It's not much. And a lot of it, there's a lot of reasons for that, right? But once you start putting that money in there, the bad thing is you start looking at the account and then you're like, oh, well, I don't need to stay here. So, which is kind of, it's good and bad. So yeah, once I kind of had reached that point, I already knew in myself, at the end of the day, I had an expiration date. I was going to have to leave. So once
So
that time started to
maybe,
come and things changed, dynamics changed at home, my kids are very young. So I had kids very late in my career. So now at least I had the ability that I was going to be able to be home more. I found I was not as present when I was working. I was,
and in a very dangerous work type of work.
yeah, well, not even so much that. It's just at my position and my level, you are constantly on the phone, emails. There's no, we're salaried employees, but you are a slave to that phone 365. There's no day off, there's no time off. Even if you're sleeping, you're a slave to that phone. So it's very hard if you don't find a good work-life balance um, to manage. And I struggled with it. I mean, I had found some footing with it, and then over time, I just couldn't find my footing again with it, and I really just wasn't happy anymore in the position I was in. So it just was time for that change. That they tell you when and 100% you know, you
You
know.
know,
The bad thing is going out of town. Like that's the worst thing. People would tell me that all the time. If you go out of town in a drop program, you realize this is what retirement looks like. And then you're like, well, I don't really want to go back anymore. So those types of things happen too. And I just knew it was just time for a change and to end that chapter, not necessarily my law enforcement chapter, but that chapter there at that agency. It was just time to move on. Um,
So
that was really,
once you put the drop, can you change your mind or it's done?
that's it. Once you put in, you have like a very short window that you can pull it back, and then that's it. So once I had done the paperwork, I mean, I had time because I gave like maybe 5 weeks notice before I walked out. But it just I think nobody believed I was gonna leave. But it was the right time for me to go. It felt like it was the right time, and I have no regrets about my decision about moving. Like I said, for me, I knew the only way I was going to be able to close that part of my life, that chapter, and move on to whatever the next chapter is going to be, was for me to leave from there, and find myself again, and find whatever was going to be after that.
So you're closing now one chapter of your life and you're
Yeah,
ready
I mean,
to move
that chapter's closed.
forward to another.
Exactly. And now I get to take the time to be able to do what I want now, which is nice, which it gave me the ability to do that, which I think
Okay.
in a lot of private sectors, you don't have that ability. But in the government sector, you do because you can retire fairly young, under 50 and be okay. And then you could go have another career at this point, and do what you want on your terms because, you're not having to worry about, oh, I need health insurance. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people can't leave their jobs because of health insurance. But for us, I stayed with our health insurance plan and it's not much of a change from what I was already paying. So that made it very simple for me to be able to
Okay.
walk out and not have to be like, oh my God, I got to go get another job because now I don't have health insurance. Mm-mm, no.
So that is a huge difference
Yeah.
for a lot of women, especially women, and especially women that have kids,
Yeah.
because it's not thinking about just them, it's about the security for their kids.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and I'm divorced. So, we have 50-50 custody of our kids. Um, you know, my health insurance plan was much better than his. So, they're able to stay on, with mine and stuff like that. And it's not much of a difference than what I was already paying. So those are the go into those decision-making process, at least, from my side of it. I mean, I know it's a little more difficult in the private sector because now you're stuck into a cobra or, oh, okay, or, uh-oh,
What do you tell,
all right, I don't know what happened on the computer.
what advice would you tell those women that are stuck, that they're not happy
Yeah.
in their job, but they're afraid? It's like, I feel that that they need like a little push.
Yeah, and listen, I felt that way too. It was a really difficult decision for me because I've spent almost my entire, like literally my entire adult life there. So it's hard to make that decision to cut that tie. You know what I mean? But you
Yeah.
just have to find if it's within you. I mean, there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of, I mean, I can't tell you, like literally I sat and I cried. Like I'm not gonna sit there and say I did it, like I did it. But I also knew in my heart that was the right decision. You know what I mean? I didn't rush to make a decision. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not the rush to make a decision. I think that that's important. Take your time, do your research, make sure you're educated financially before you make any major decisions, right? But if you're truly unhappy where you're at, listen, life is too short to be somewhere you're not happy and it's not fulfilling you. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
have to find what fulfills you because nothing tomorrow is not promised to anybody. So we have to be able to be happy. And plus our kids, if you have kids, your kids need to see you, being successful, being able, if you're having going through a rough patch to get back up, and get back on your feet. Especially as a mom to two daughters, I've had to show them that, like, hey, you know what, mommy got knocked down, but I'm back up again. You know what I mean? Like you have to show
Yes,
them that. That's so important.
that's that's raising them strong.
Yeah.
Not that everything is like a fairy tale.
Right. And I was always raised, don't rely on a man. And it's nothing against guys, not at all. It's just I was raised by a single parent, by a single mother, which was do not rely on a man for you. Like you got to go out there,
Correct.
you go get a job, you pay for your own things, you do everything yourself. And I've always said, to the person in my life, hey, I want you in my life. I don't need you in my life. I want you.
Correct.
So that's important to understand that it's the same thing with a job. You don't want to feel like you're beholden to the job, that you're handcuffed to the job. Then it becomes a very toxic relationship. Um, and that's not healthy. That's not healthy at all.
It's the courage to make that move.
Yeah, and it's a big step. And trust me, I totally understand. But that's why I said I'm a researcher. So for me, as long as I feel okay, I can look at the data in front of me, I can see things in black and white. Okay, financially, am I okay? Like when I went to get divorced, it had been years since I really had financially looked at how I would function by myself. And so that's a scary thing in and of itself. It's the same thing. That's a big
Yeah.
change, life change, just like a job. So when I looked at my finances by myself, I was like, wait a minute, I'm okay. Like, I don't need to stay in this relationship because of a money situation. Like, I want to, I don't need to do this.
I
You know
don't
what I mean?
need to be in this position. Like you were financially independent.
And
And
that's what,
that's literally our goal
of
at the Power
course.
of Skills.
Absolutely. And thankfully, my blood, sweat, and tears of almost 23 years has actually, I'm at 23 as a police officer anyway, but 22 and a half there led me to be able to be here. You know what I mean? Like I'm able to be financially okay and do what I want on my terms. And I think that that's really, really important.
So what comes next for you?
That's a good question. Honestly, it's just finding what's the right fit for me. I do know I probably want to go back to a full-time job. So it's finding the right job that works for me, which is the beauty of right now. I have that ability to take my time
Correct.
and not
And
rush into
choose.
something and choose and not be stressed like, oh my God, I gotta get a job tomorrow. Like now it's like, okay, you know what? Let me find what's the right fit for my home life, for me as a person. I still have a lot to give. Right now I teach a lot between two of the police academies here. So that's been very fulfilling for me because I love teaching. And in my last role, I had really had to put it to the back burner. I didn't have time. So now I have that ability to give back to our young officers and officers that are starting their career, and try to set them on the right path so they have a successful career and are able to retire and be
But
happy and
will
healthy.
that be like, are you doing it as a job or just as
It's part-time. It's a part-time
okay.
adjunct thing, but the thing is I do a lot of it. Some weeks I'm there 40 hours, and sometimes I'm there 8 hours. It just depends. But it's sporadic. But that's why I kind of miss having stability. But
Okay.
I also like having freedom too. So it's finding the good balance between the two, you know.
What lessons have you learned through all the process?
I don't know. You know what? I'm thankful that over my career, I had been told early on by older officers when I first started, and even before I got hired, have your life, separate. You know what I mean? Like, don't take that work home with you if you can help it. You know what I mean? Don't be a cop at home. Like, don't, keep your friends,
Were
try to
you
keep
able to do
your,
it?
uh,
Were you able to keep it apart?
Yes, for the most part, yes. Honestly, it was not a difficult transition for that because that can be a very big transition in and of itself. I'm not a police officer anymore. That is a very strange transition when you've been a cop a really long time. So I came to terms with it pretty fast, surprisingly. But I think because I kept my life pretty separate. I tried to just it wasn't my life all the time. You know what I mean? Like I never made it my
Yeah.
life, and that's important. And I always tell the young guys, just don't. you got to be you. You can't, be all about this life. You know what I mean? Like you really have to try to maintain who you were before you became a police officer. And I think that that's important.
Like really knowing what you really want.
Yes, 100%.
So Kim, thank you. What your girls, before we leave, were your girls happy? I imagine that now that they have you all around.
It's good and bad. It's good and bad. I get volunteered. Now I'm like the homeroom like
Of
mom.
course, the
Like,
PTA,
I
everything
don't
in
even know. I'm like, what
school.
am I supposed to do? I don't even know. So for now, yes, but yeah. So my big one, yeah, she loves it. She's 10. So now I find as we transition into like that preteen era, which sucks.
I know.
I kind of need to be like more on top of her. And then my little one's she's happy go lucky. She's 6. So she's just, but but again, at the end of the day, that's the life that they know is both parents working. You know what I mean? So they
Yes.
don't know this other life that, so they know mommy's always working. I know my older one's probably going to have a difficult time when I go back full time, but it's a transition and she needs to see that. You know what I mean? Like at the end of
Yeah.
the day,
Yeah.
she has to see it. And they're at school. It's not like, they're not home with
No,
me. So,
no,
so
but that's amazing that you get the luxury of
yeah,
choosing now what you really want.
yeah. And that's been the biggest thing is being able to have that freedom.
And that retirement is not like the end. It's like
Right.
closing
No,
a
not
chapter and a new beginning.
the biggest thing, like it's especially with cops, like I said, once you get past the hurdle of this is not your life anymore, is finding yourself again. Because for us, you're always working. So maybe those hobbies or those things you couldn't do that you had to like put off because you didn't have time. Now you have time to do some of those things and kind of reinvent yourself. And for me, that was big. Like, I studied music as a kid. So, but I basically put all that in my past, and it was nice to kind of be able to come back to focus on that I could try to get back into that, being able to play music, and that's a good de-stressor, and taking those time to do the things that, like I said, I just don't have time for before.
Well, you don't know. Maybe you have a career in you in music.
Oh, probably not, but I wish if I started 30 years ago, maybe, but for sure, no, no.
But that's a nice hobby to have.
Yes, it's a good hobby. Definitely not a career. No. I wish. I wish. But no. But it's good, but
Kim,
it's good because my daughter now is very much in it. And that's been kind of nice to now I have the time to be able to take them to classes and do some of those extracurricular things I couldn't do before because I wasn't home. My
yeah.
commute to get to and from work was 3 hours every day, an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half to get home. So by the time I'm getting home, it's 6 o'clock at night. It's time for dinner. Now you got to make dinner, bath time, and it's 10 o'clock at night, and you're still doing, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
hard.
so it wasn't the time that you wanted to spend with them.
Yeah, you lose, and that's why I said you end up losing time. And it's not, again, time is not about quantity, it is about quality.
Yeah.
And I found I wasn't giving the quality time I needed to give. Whereas
But how sad that the time that you spent going back and forth would have been spent if traffic wouldn't be so bad.
I know it's terrible. Everybody's moving to South Florida, so it's
I
only getting
know.
worse, which I guess is good, but it sucks for traffic.
No, I know, but that is like 3 hours of your life that could have been shared with your kids as opposed to just being in a car.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, as a mom, it's difficult. It's hard for us because I find we have a bigger burden a lot of the times. So it's just that guilt on you is very real. I'm not giving enough time. I'm not doing enough of this. Oh my God, I didn't cook food for them. We got McDonald's, you know what I mean? So then you feel
No,
bad
the
about
guilt
yourself,
will never go away, but if it makes you feel better, I asked my daughter, who's now old enough and a mom, and I asked her when I was working, and she goes, "But you were always there.
Yeah,
Like you were always there." And I was like, "Okay, that's exactly what I needed to hear. I wasn't,
yeah,
but you were always there. That means that you were always there for the important things,
exactly. And again, it's not about quantity, it's about quality.
about quality."
And
Yeah.
if that's all that they don't know anything different than that. And both of my kids were raised that way, that mommy and daddy are working and we work shift work and it is what it is, but we
Yeah.
always made it work, so they know. And yeah, it's important. But that's, as women, you have to find what is right for you. It can't just be, oh, because it pays the bills. It has to be the right thing and it has to be the right fit. And sometimes it takes a while to get there,
But it's the right fit. It's not the balance, because forget it. There is no
Yeah.
balance. That
No.
is BS.
Yeah.
No way.
No.
Because
It
something's
doesn't work.
gotta give.
Yeah, and that's what I found. I was walking a tightrope of uh, just not finding that balance. It's like this constant, like, okay, okay, okay. Like if you give a little bit here, then you lose on
Then
this.
you
You know what I
get
mean?
correct. That's why I mean when that there is no
No,
balance. Like something's going to have to give from one side, and then you try to compensate on the other, but you're always on a tightrope.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Oh, congratulations on your retirement. Even though it is very weird, because when you think retirement, you think of this old lady, white hair, over 65. And so, no, very happy. And for everyone, there is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
There is
100%.
a choice on where you want to be and how you want to reinvent yourself. Okay, thank you so much. And everyone, until next week, and above all, stay safe. Have a wonderful week.